If you can afford the worst room, I'll give you the suite. The manager sneered, but the farmer shut everyone up. The heavy oak doors of the Grand Magnolia Hotel slammed behind James Carter, a weathered farmer from a small town in Kansas. Dust clung to his boots and sunburn traced the lines of his face. He wasn't used to the polished floors, the glittering chandeliers, or the hushed murmurs of well-dressed guests. But he needed a room, just for one night. The front desk manager, a man in a perfectly pressed suit with a perpetual smirk, eyed James with thinly veiled contempt. "You want a room?" he asked, one eyebrow raised. "Our best suites start at $500. The worst. Well, if you can afford the worst room, I'll give you the suite." He laughed, a sound meant to humiliate. The guests in the lobby snickered too. James didn't flinch. He placed his calloused hands on the counter, fingers still smelling faintly of soil. "I'll take the worst room," he said quietly, "and keep it warm for anyone who might need it more than me." The manager's smirk faltered. "Excuse me?" James smiled faintly. "If someone comes in later, someone tired, hungry, or traveling with nowhere to go, let them have the room. I'll make do with a corner or even the floor. It won't hurt me." A hush fell over the lobby. The guests shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware that their laughter had been misplaced. The manager opened his mouth to scoff again, but found no words. Then he cleared his throat and, against every instinct of ego, handed James a key. "Suite 712. Enjoy." James nodded, thanked him, and carried his bag to the elevator. But before the doors closed, he turned back and said, "Kindness is free. Don't forget that." That night, James settled into the luxurious suite, but he didn't unpack. He left the beds neatly made, the towels folded, and a small note on the nightstand. "This room is for anyone who needs it. Pass it forward." The next morning, a young woman traveling alone arrived, exhausted from a long journey. The receptionist, glancing at James's note, handed her the key to 712. Tears welled in her eyes. She couldn't believe someone had thought of strangers like her. Word spread quickly. Guests started leaving notes, small gestures, and acts of kindness in the hotel. What began as a single farmer's quiet generosity became a ripple effect. The Grand Magnolia, once known for its opulence and snobbery, became a place known for humanity. Years later, the manager, now older and wiser, remembered James every time he watched someone smile because of a simple act of generosity, and he finally understood. The true luxury isn't in gold chandeliers or plush carpets, it's in the heart. James returned home to his farm, the sun setting behind the golden fields. He didn't need praise or recognition. The world had already shifted a little, all because one man had chosen kindness over pride. And somewhere, in the hum of the Grand Magnolia's lights, the echo of that choice kept inspiring strangers to care for one another, for the small acts that truly make life extraordinary. Weeks passed, and James's simple act of kindness continued to ripple far beyond the walls of the Grand Magnolia. Travelers who had stayed in the suite left small notes of gratitude, folded into origami hearts or tucked under lamps, each one telling a story of someone's hardship, a dream, or a struggle they had overcome. One chilly evening, the manager, now reflecting quietly on the changes, received a letter addressed to him in a careful, looping script. Inside was a short note. "Because of the kindness I experienced in room 712, I found the courage to pursue my dream of opening a shelter for homeless families. Thank you, unknown farmer. You reminded me that one act of generosity can change the world." The manager held the letter close, his eyes misting. He finally realized the truth James had quietly taught him. Generosity isn't about wealth or status. It's about recognizing the humanity in others. Back on his farm, James was tending his fields at sunrise, the golden light spilling across the rows of wheat. A neighbor stopped by, carrying a basket of freshly baked bread. "James," she said, smiling, "I heard about the hotel. Everyone's talking about the farmer who changed hearts in the city." James chuckled softly, wiping sweat from his brow. "I didn't do it for recognition," he said. I just did what felt right. The rest, well, that's on them. Yet, even as he said it, he knew the truth. Sometimes the smallest gestures, leaving a room for someone else, giving without expectation, created ripples far larger than any act of wealth or pride could. And in those ripples, the world found hope. Years later, when the manager retired, he hung a small framed note in the lobby of the Grand Magnolia. It read simply, "Kindness is free. Pass it forward." Guests from around the world would pause to read it, some smiling, some wiping away tears. And in their hearts, the lesson lingered. Even in a world obsessed with luxury and status, compassion always shines brighter than gold. James never sought fame. He never returned to the city, but in the laughter of travelers, the letters of strangers, and the countless small acts of kindness his choice had inspired, his quiet legacy lived on, proof that true wealth is measured not by what you take, but by what you give. Months later, word of the suite for strangers spread far beyond the city. Travelers began seeking the Grand Magnolia not for luxury, but for the chance to experience its newfound warmth. Journalists came, curious about the story of the quiet farmer who had shaken the hotel's walls with a single act of kindness. The manager, once arrogant and cold, now found himself humbled daily. He watched guests hug each other, strangers offering help, sharing meals, and leaving notes of gratitude. One evening, a small child approached him, holding a folded piece of paper. "Sir," the little girl said shyly, "my mommy stayed in room 712. She said someone's kindness made her believe things could get better. She said I could be kind, too." The manager blinked back tears. He realized he had spent decades measuring life by money, status, and appearances, when all along it was compassion that truly mattered. Meanwhile, James continued his life on the farm. Yet he began receiving letters, not just from strangers in the hotel, but from people across the country, inspired by his story. Some sent thanks. Others shared stories of how they had helped someone because they remembered what James had done. One note read, "You reminded me that the world is full of small miracles, and we are the ones who make them happen." James folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer. He smiled, thinking how one simple choice, choosing kindness over pride, had grown into a ripple reaching far beyond anything he could have imagined. Back in the city, the Grand Magnolia became more than a hotel. It became a place where generosity was valued above opulence, where acts of kindness transformed lives, and where guests were reminded that even the smallest gestures can leave a mark that lasts forever. And somewhere, in the quiet hum of the city and the golden fields of Kansas, the farmer's legacy endured, a living proof that when you act with an open heart, the world responds in kind.